In a world just flooded with information, getting your message to actually stick is harder than ever. We're not just fighting for people's attention anymore, we're fighting for their memory. So today, we're going to unpack the blueprint that makes the difference between a talk that's just okay and one that's truly unforgettable. And this isn't just about getting over stage fright, it's about mastering a formula. Okay, let's dive right in. So, think about it for a second. The last great presentation you saw, what made it stick with you? I bet it wasn't just the topic or even how charismatic the speaker was. Nope. The secret sauce, the invisible force at play, is almost always a brilliantly engineered structure. That structure is what makes it easy for your audience to follow along. It basically reduces their brain work so they can just absorb, process, and actually remember what you're trying to say. And that whole structure, it all starts way before you even get to your first big point. We're going to use a building metaphor for this because it just fits perfectly. Think about it. Every great presentation, just like a building, needs a rock-solid foundation. And that foundation, it's your introduction. Okay, so there's this cool psychological thing called the primacy effect. And all it really means is that we're wired to remember the first pieces of information we hear. So what does that mean for you? It means your opening moments are literally the most valuable real estate in your entire presentation. You're not just saying hi. You're making a promise. You're telling the audience, hey, I know your attention is valuable, and I promise this is going to be worth your time. Now, what's really cool about this is how it turns the art of an introduction into a straight-up science. This isn't just a random checklist. It's more like a social contract with your audience. When you clearly state your topic, what you're trying to achieve, and how you're going to get there, you're basically telling them, I respect your time, and here's my plan to make it count. And that builds trust right from the get-go. See how simple that is? It just effortlessly establishes that contract we were talking about. The most confident presenters, they don't start with some crazy gimmick. They start with clarity. This simple, direct opening takes care of the first couple of steps on our list, and it creates this smooth runway for the rest of your talk. It lets the audience just relax because they know they're in good hands. All right, so once that foundation of trust is set, now you can inject a little intrigue. Each of these methods here, they work on the brain in a different way. You pose a question, boom, you're getting their brains to start problem solving. You share a surprising fact, that creates what's called a pattern interrupt. It wakes them right up. And a story? Well, a story taps into empathy and emotion, and that makes your whole message feel personal. Okay, so the foundation is poured, the contract is signed, now it's time to actually build the framework of your presentation. This is the main body, right? This is where you deliver on the big promise you made back in the introduction. And your number one goal here is just absolute clarity. You're not just telling your audience what to think, you're actually showing them how to think about your topic. Think of it like this. Each point you make isn't just a standalone fact, it's a piece of a bigger puzzle, and you're the one carefully putting it together for them. And this right here perfectly illustrates the secret weapon of all the best communicators. It's called signposting. Just look at the difference. The column on the left, it's just a bunch of disconnected islands. But the one on the right, that's a bridge. These super simple phrases are like the threads that guide your audience from one idea to the next. It means they don't have to work to connect the dots because you're doing it for them. Okay, here's another pro-level move for keeping your audience with you. Imagine their working memory is like a small bucket. If you just keep pouring information in, what happens? It's going to overflow. So, a quick little summary in the middle of your talk, that's like emptying the bucket. It lets you lock in the key points before you start pouring more info in. It's just a strategic pause, but it makes a huge difference for retention. All right, so you've built a flawless structure. That's great. But we all live in an age of distraction, right? So how do you stop that dreaded mental checkout, where their eyes are on you, but their minds are on their phones? Well, you have to actively engineer engagement. And this is really the key takeaway here. The best presentations aren't monologues. They're dialogues, even if the audience never actually says a word. Your goal is to shift them from just being passive listeners to being active participants. You want their minds working right there, along with yours. And your slides are probably your number one tool for making that happen. Now, this isn't just about making things look pretty. This is about how our brains work. Think about it. When your audience is trying to read a ton of text on a screen, they literally can't listen to you at the same time. It's a real thing. It's called the split attention effect. Your visuals should support what you're saying, not fight with it for attention. This is such a great way to create that silent dialogue we were talking about.
Posing a rhetorical question like this, it does something really powerful. It pulls the audience out of just passively watching and makes them an active participant. You're basically getting them to run a little thought experiment in their own heads, applying your ideas to their own lives. And that makes everything you're saying instantly more relevant and way more memorable. All right, we've built the structure, we've kept our audience engaged. Now for the grand finale. This part is so crucial. It's not enough to just stop talking. You have to absolutely stick the landing. So let's talk about the conclusion and how to end with real impact.
And you know what? Just like the intro, a great conclusion is a formula. It's not some big mystery. It honors that contract you made at the very beginning. You signal that you're wrapping up, and that tells the audience, okay, pay attention now. Here come the most important points. This taps into something called the recency effect, which just means we're also really good at remembering the last thing we heard.
And honestly, it can be this simple and direct. Phrases like to conclude or in summary, those are the verbal cues that tell everyone you're landing the plane. You follow that up with a quick summary and a polite thank you, and it doesn't just feel professional, it gives your audience a sense of closure. It wraps everything up neatly and leaves them with a crystal clear memory of your main point.
So as we wrap this up, let me leave you with this final thought. Look, becoming a great presenter isn't some magical overnight thing. It's all about deliberate practice. So my question to you is, what's the one technique, the one small hinge you learned today that you can use to swing a big door in your very next presentation? The blueprint is all yours now. Go build something amazing.